And once again, we are here on Living in the 21st Century. Joining me today is Robert Nichols from Boston Trust Realty Group. Hi, Robert. It's good to be here again.
Thank you, Earl. Thank you for having me.
Sure, it's always a pleasure.
Excellent.
Yeah, so today we're on the topic again, real estate. And this is the greater real estate news surrounding Boston, Massachusetts, etc. And from the last time we last spoke, I recognize that there's a huge jump on property prices. Some in the vicinity of 10 to 30%. Is that a demand today for property that's driving the cost up, or what's going on?
So I'll tell you, Earl, I know last time I was here, we spoke about kind of the market leveling off a bit.
Yes.
And one thing that I think is important to point out is that we're seeing the first-time home buyer market, which we kind of track as, let's say, $450,000 or less for a single-family home in a lot of these markets in and around the greater Boston area. And I know that may sound like a lot of money for some, but in the city of Boston, that's pretty affordable for a first-time home buyer to be able to acquire a home in that range.
Okay.
There's been pretty much a drought of quality homes in that price point. And so as a result, you do have a lot of buyers who ended up buying condos, but for folks who actually desire single family, there haven't been a ton out there that fit the need. And so when there are homes that come on in that range, 450 and under, the buyers are definitely very aggressive with these homes. And a lot of times you'll see bidding wars and people paying over asking price, because even with rates going up, that's still a very affordable price point. And so from that perspective, that's what you're seeing. It's a function of the prior drought of homes. It still is a seller's market. And we have a joke in my office. So the last 3 years, we've been all saying, oh, this is the top, this is the top, this is the top. We're still saying it now, but at some point we'll eventually be right. But we're not there yet. So from that perspective, and we'll only know when we're there when we see it go down. So, but yeah, it's really a response to the lack of affordable homes and quality homes within that price range for buyers. There has not been an abundance of that. But when those come on, they tend to sell very quickly. So that market is very strong.
Excellent, excellent. Well, one of the things that always buzz my brain, how many people today, everyone is crying that the cost of living is going through the roof.
Right, 100%, yes.
And some of them who probably were renting, they are throwing out their homes because they can't afford rent. We would have noticed that a lot of houses would have been repossessed at some point or the other, whether it's through the banks or some other form. It still bothers me. Yes, we recognize there's a lot of houses on the market. The prices are elevating through the roof. But do we have the buyers for these homes? How many of them are qualifying to buy these homes? That's the other question I want to ask.
So I'll tell you this, or this is a very great question. Historically, anytime rates go up, typically the banks want to lend because they're making more money on the loan. So when rates were really low, banks like Bank of America, were notorious for not helping buyers get mortgages, and they made it very difficult and put a lot of obstacles and barriers in the way, basically frustrating buyers to the point where they just go elsewhere, because when they're only going to make 4% on the loan, there's no incentive for them to really do it. They'd rather make their money elsewhere. So the higher rates go, typically and historically, the easier it is to get a loan, meaning the banks come out with different products that enable first-time home buyers to get a loan with more ease, because now they're making 6% on that same loan as opposed to 4% they would have made. So that, I think, kind of balances out the affordability issue on the 450 and under range. And again, there are also programs out there for first-time home buyers specifically where they can buy with only 3% down. So that's pretty much the same as you're going to pay as first, last, and security on a rental. Why not own a home or own a condo? If you can come up with that, it's better to own and build that equity and start to build wealth over time. So even though it may seem like it's not affordable, I mean, the cost of living here is very expensive. The banks do have ways to make it easy for first-time home buyers to get in with some of these special programs they offer. I know Maha is one. They have the One Mortgage, which is, I believe, a soft second program where you can get a second loan to help with the down payment. And then obviously FHA and mass housing as well. So those require 3 to 3.5% down, which is very affordable. So that is kind of, I'd say, the counter to allowing and empowering people to buy, even though these prices are through the roof.
Okay, nice. Well, I want to ask you this question, maybe a little bit political.
Yes.
Between 2008 2016, President Obama had put a lot of restrictions on banks in terms of giving a loan to house buyers and so forth. And to some degree, it had a very negative impact on who should and shouldn't get homes or acquire homes by loans from the banks. Here's my biggest question. Is it a difference now Donald Trump is in power that the banks somewhat being able to be more freely in terms of giving out loans to home buyers that all of a sudden there is so much loans available to people who are seeking to purchase a home, or make more available to those who are seeking to purchase a home?
Very good.
Which one is it?
Yeah, so great question, Ross. So I think the legislation you're referring to is the Dodd-Frank legislation, which was a reaction to what had happened prior to 2008, which is there were no rules on these residential mortgage lenders. People were buying homes with no money down. And I'll tell you a quick story. There was a case study they did on Countrywide Bank.
Okay.
And Countrywide had lent a gentleman, he was a mariachi band player, and they had lent him $500,000 to purchase a home. Now, when they looked at the file, when they did audits years later and saw what this man had provided for proof of income, I think it's very telling of what was going on at that time. And what they found, it was an autographed photo of him and his band dropped in the file as proof of income. And so when banks are lending based on a photograph of you and your bandmates playing in a band, I think some legislation does need to come down in order to correct that, because that is a serious issue where anyone could get a loan for $500,000 to buy a home without any proof of income. And so, he ended up losing the home, and that's what triggered the audit. And, obviously we saw the financial meltdown. But with that said, I think Dodd-Frank was very extreme, and I think there are efforts to try to I wouldn't say circumvent it, but make it affordable for the buyers to get into homes now. I think with the Trump regime and the Trump team, they've come in and really loosened the reins on the commercial side of the business. On the residential side, for the most part, it's been untouched. But at the same time, like I said, a lot of these newer programs that are coming out still will allow these buyers who are looking to enter the market for the first time to get in. So, I think his legislation really is starting the money flow with, investments when it comes to commercial real estate, fix and flips, because a lot of the funding for that is also commercial. And then just buying and holding, office buildings and large scale rentals and apartments. That market's really revved up because the private equity firms are now flooding the market with capital in response to a lot of the reins being loosened on the commercial side. Yep.
Right. Well, in an event that a person want to invest in this time, I don't know how many will, considering the elevated prices on homes.
Right.
What really is I'm trying to figure out what really is the reason that driving the prices so high and there are probably still so many buyers? Or is it just that the price is going high, hoping to get buyers and get the maximum out of their property?
Yes.
Which one is it?
I'll tell you. So we see a lot, especially with the market kind of really taking off, we see a lot of sellers who are just speculatively throwing out properties on the market at numbers that you'd never think you'd get in a million years. The last couple of years, they've gotten some very high numbers. I mean, we're dealing with a couple of multifamilies now where, in my mind, there's not a lot of justification for the prices. The rents aren't going to get you to where they're selling at. However, the people buying these properties a lot of them have a lot of liquidity. They've made a lot of money elsewhere. They're sitting on a lot of money in the bank. They have money in the markets, but they want a tangible asset. They want something they can hold, touch, see, feel, taste, They want something that's there that they know and have that security no matter what happens. This is something they can control and manage to get a high return. Even if the economy goes south, they know, okay, rents may dip a little bit, but at least I have rents coming in and I'm getting a fixed return on my initial investment. And these aren't buyers putting down 3.5%. They're putting down 20% plus. And so that's the buyers that are still fueling this market, because there still is a lot of liquidity out there. Some people tap into the equity in their homes to do the down payment. I have a few clients I work with that do that, and they're going to get a much better return. They're paying the bank 6% on a HELOC, they refi it out, and they're going to make 30% on that same 6 they're investing in a property they're buying. And so that's the logic that is fueling a lot of these homes, especially from the investment side. It's fueling that market for sure. Yeah.
Okay. What advice right now would you give to a person who is trying to decide whether this is the time to invest in a home and as an investment property now, not to really live into,
right,
as an investment property? Will this be the time that you would advise them to buy right now, or would you tell them to hold off a little bit because the prices are going so high?
Great question, and again, and I'll tell you, Aral, I think it really depends on where you're at financially. Now, I say this, I always tell my team, there's opportunities in every market. So I want to make that clear.
Right.
No matter if the market's at the top or at the bottom, there are opportunities that make sense in that market. If your goal is to get a fixed return on your money, then obviously you want to buy for as low as you can,
yes,
and rent it out to try to maximize that return. And there's still foreclosures happening, not as many.
Right.
There still are auction sites and distressed homes, tax lists, probate lists. There are deals out there. So if you really want to take your money and put it to work for you now, the difference is that you're going to have to find a way to find properties that kind of will get you a maximum return. Now, the market properties you see in MLS, by and large, you're competing with everybody. There's a lot of competition. You're going to have to go off the beaten path or work with a team that knows how to do that. My office is very well equipped to track down probate and tax deals and pre-foreclosure deals. They're still out there, and we do quite a few of those a month in our office. So if you really have a need to invest now and you want to partner with a team, we can definitely help with that. But if you're someone who is looking to just try to time the market and have an abundance of opportunities to make sure you're buying in on the downturn so that when it turns up again, you'll have a ton of equity, then definitely waiting isn't a bad option either. But again, there's opportunities in every market. You just have to know where to go to get the deals that are going to get you the return in this market, which is it's harder than ever, but it's possible, and we do it every day.
Okay. Well, let's take a deeper look at Boston Trust Realty Group.
Yes.
So you more position in a point from a standpoint where if there are investors out there, if there are people who want to invest in a home as a source of earning extra income, your organization would better fit them or identify some of the best-selling homes or opportunities that they can invest in a home and eventually they can evolve in terms of their finances. Would you want to shed a little bit more light on that?
Sure. So my team, we have a total of 47 agents in my office. Of that, it's around 20 full-timers. Now, that team ranges in experience, it ranges in skill sets. And so me personally, and there are about 3 other guys in my office who have really evolved into primarily representing investors. So we do a lot of off-market development deals. We sell permitted land, raw land, commercial buildings. And so from that perspective, we have that part of the market. That's where I spend most of the time when I work with clients. And then we have a few other team members who work with first-time home buyers or people looking for condos in and around the city. So we're structured very uniquely, and we do also invest ourselves. So my wife and I'm a licensed contractor in addition to being a broker and an agent. And so we're structured in that we can assist people with estimates and really give them a good sense as to what it's going to cost to renovate a property and turn it into something where they're getting the return they desire. So you're not going in it blind. And so I think that's another feature that makes us unique. And then lastly, we do have in-house financing. As you know, Ann Rochelle Joseph, she's been on the show as well. She works in my office, and then I do on the commercial side, short-term investment funding for fix and flips. And then we also do commercial lending. So we have quite a few features in the office that make us a unique office and a unique team to service a broad range of clientele, but at the same time, you're getting a specific part of the team based on your need.
Right. So your office assists in financing.
That's correct.
So if a person needs to get an equity loan,
yes,
your office can do that.
So we don't do HELOCs.
Oh, okay.
No, we do. You can do a cash out refi. So we do cash out refis. Additionally, we can also, if it's a commercial deal, we can definitely help you with a refi, cash out refi on that as well.
Okay. Yep. So you make recommendations then to
That's correct. We can refer that out. You got it.
Okay. But that's a lot part.
Yes.
Okay. So here's the next question. So let's say we got a group of inexperienced people,
Yes.
young people who may just start to build some form of credit and they're feeling excited, they want to move into their first home, or they probably want to be smart, say, you know what, let me invest in a home, right? What advice, because young people in themselves can make bad mistakes, and the last mistake they want to make, the mistake they don't want to make as a young person is investing and probably paying for that investment throughout their entire life.
Right.
What advice would you give that young person and pointing them in the right direction?
I'll say, don't be house poor. I'll say it again. Don't be house poor. What does that mean? House poor is a term we use when buyers over leverage themselves and over leverage their financing by purchasing a home that's at the top of their affordability and sacrifice everything else. So they may not be able to afford food, gas, and anything else, paying the utilities for the home. They have a nice, beautiful home, but they're poor because they have nothing else. And so from that perspective, be smart about what you buy. Really just take a look and confirm you're still going to have the ability to save money after you cover your mortgage and all other expenses associated with purchasing a home. I mean, some people are so emotionally attached to the idea of having their own place that they throw everything else by the wayside, and at all costs, they'll borrow money from family for the down payment and everything else and make promises they can't keep. And so I think folks need to really temper the emotional side and dive in deep on the logical side to make sure the deal makes financial sense in the long run. Because if your income declines or things change, you definitely want to ensure that you still have enough or have some reserves for that rainy day. Your furnace could go, boom. Yes. That's $5,000 right there. It happened to me when I bought my first house, and trust me, I wasn't ready. I bought my first house when I was 24, and it was didn't have any guidance. I wasn't licensed. This is how I got into real estate. And I was young with my buddies. I just wanted to have a good time, single guy. So I used that house like an ATM machine, man. That's not a good look. I'll be honest. That wasn't good news. I was making about $400 a month, and that just went straight out the window. As soon as it came in, it was already spent before it came on foolishness. And so I caution young people to, to really be wise with your money and make sure you, whether it's 10%, 5%, 20%, however much you can save of the income that comes in, make sure you have a rainy day fund. Because the last thing you want to do is go further in debt, trying to struggle and maintain a home on appearance that really in the end is not helping you build wealth. So that's my advice.
Naturally. Now, one of the other things in terms of investing, and I think this is of vital importance, is one's geographic location.
Oh, yes.
Selecting locations when you want to purchase a house. Now, tell us how important that is and what are some of the best locations you can think about?
Great. Yes. So location. I know it sounds cliche, but it's the reality. Exactly. It's everything in real estate. And so whether you're investing to live in a home or investing to rent a home, you want to make sure that you're buying in a location that has the potential for great appreciation over time. And so the way it works, we always say in the industry, buy low, rent low, buy high, rent high. If you're going to buy a home close to a college in the city of Boston, for example, Brighton, Alston, even parts of Roxbury, close to Northeastern, these homes, you're going to pay a premium. Yes. However, you're going to be able to rent them for a premium as well. And so with that said, you have to be very smart about where you purchase. And it has to be affordable to you, but at the same time, you don't want to be in a neighborhood where it's only when it goes down, it's going to really go down. There's really not a lot of economic stability in the area, not a lot of jobs. You have a lot of subsidized housing, things of that nature, where it's just very difficult for those markets to recover. There's still, believe it or not, markets in this country that haven't recovered from the crash, which is crazy to think, but that is the reality for some in America. And so it's a strange recovery, but I will say this, the Boston market, the greater Boston market as a whole is one of the strongest in the country. It's one of the strongest economy in the country, fueled by the schools, fueled by, the medicine and health. I mean, we have so much going on, jobs, a lot of companies are coming here. So it's a very great ecosystem. I think within the city as a whole, I mean, the areas that, the next hotspot is Roxbury is one that comes to mind just because of the proximity to the city. And the cost per square foot is the lowest within a couple mile radius outside of the city center. So that's a really hot market. And occasionally you still can find some good deals. The secret is kind of out. I mean, a lot of investors know, and there are a lot of people looking to invest in that market. Outside of the city, you can really find some good deals south of in Quincy, but it's still on the red line. And I think public transportation is also a huge thing to be vigilant of. When you invest in a home, whether you're going to live in it or rent it, the closer you can be to whether it's a commuter rail station or a red line, orange line, the T station, the better it's going to be long term. And so what Boston is doing, they're opening up commuter rail stations, and the cost to ride that commuter rail is the same as it is the normal red line, orange line, blue line T in the city, if you're in a certain region. And so it's really starting to boom a lot of these other areas like Mattapan, and Roxbury obviously is already taken off, but parts of Dorchester that have been underserved. But now you have a new influx of all types of folks moving in. So within the city for sure is good. And then like I said, Quincy is one area where there's a lot of economic development. They put billions into redeveloping Quincy Center, and so that's one market that I feel has some upside for young people trying to get in to the market. And it hasn't taken off like a Newton or Brookline, which is just totally, some of the most expensive markets in the country.
Naturally.
Yeah. So
naturally.
Yep.
One thing I want to ask, I know we just spoke about being house poor.
Yes.
Would it be for a smart, young, educated college grad or so who has the potential to earn middle class? I mean, middle class and so much middle anymore.
Right. The ever-shrinking middle class.
The ever-shrinking middle class.
Right.
But would it be wise for that person, if not too many commitments at that point, they may still have a student loan, but would it be wise for that person think about investing in one of these high-end, potentially homes that is near the T or near transportation, whether they can lease it out to a college student, a young college student, and continuously do that and build some form of wealth to it? What would be your advice weighing the pros and the cons between there?
So the first thing I always say, and we get this a lot, the first home is not your last home. And the beauty of that is you can get in at a very low entry point. You're only putting down 3.5%, 3% in some cases. And you're able to buy something of quality if you get a nice condo with all the finishes. And from there, once you're ready to move up or step up into a single family, change of life, family grows, you have a child, all types of things, extended family needs to come live with you, whatever the case. You're able to definitely rent that at a premium because first and foremost, you have the T in close proximity, but more importantly, you're renting a superior product.
Right.
You have high-end appliances, hopefully you have high-end efficiency, heating systems, cooling systems, all the amenities and finishes that today's buyers want that they see on HGTV. That's kind of becoming the standard for renters and buyers alike. And so from that perspective, I think it's a great investment to get in, even if you're paying a little bit more, if you can afford it comfortably. Definitely the long-term play is to keep that. Don't even think about selling it.
Right.
Add it to your portfolio and little by little build, and over time you'll be amazed at what you can do. Because at one point, if you want to move out and move into the next house, it still is affordable to put down that down payment because it's going to be an owner-occupied property. So typically you can get financing and then you rent the existing home out, or you can decide if you wanted to refi and pull out a little equity over time that you've built up to leverage that to invest in something else, maybe a multifamily or again, your dream single family. Try to structure things so that you can keep that asset, keep that property for the long haul, because that's fundamentally how you build wealth, and you'll be really setting yourself up for success.
Beautiful. We just mentioned multifamily investments. Now we know for a fact the state of Massachusetts, and I heard this from many landlords and landowners, that you can have people live in your homes for a while and they find the tiniest little thing to talk about to avoid paying rent. And if the season is not in favor of the landlord, that person ain't getting out your home. You go to court all the time, but they're going to be kept in that home until God knows how long.
Oh, yes.
What kind of advice would you give a person that investing in a multifamily home for investment? What kind of tenants would you look for in terms of leasing your house to?
I'll tell you, Raw, there's two ways to look at this. So a lot of multifamilies that you purchase sometimes already have tenants. So you're inheriting tenants that you really don't know everything about them. You need to be ready for anything. That's my first word of advice. And the second piece, get a lawyer. That's it.
Get a lawyer.
No, just kidding. In addition
Yes.
to that.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm not kidding. Get a lawyer for sure.
Okay.
Because I've dealt with some evictions myself. It's never pretty because these are human beings. These are
Yes.
people who
Yes.
are, just like you and I. They're looking to have the best life they can have.
Right.
And for one reason or another, things change. And I think it's important to be understanding of their needs.
Yes.
One way we deal with that, like one strategy is called cash for keys. Because Massachusetts is a tenant's right state, tenants always get preference. And typically, you're not going to be able to evict for a minimum of 90 days. That's
Yes.
typically the amount of time a judge will give them. And so
Right.
I found that if you can incentivize them to work with you by offering some type of a incentive in the form of cash, we call it cash for keys. When they give you the keys, they get a check of an agreed upon amount. It works really well in Massachusetts because most folks are reasonable.
Yes.
And if you need them to leave so you can renovate and you purchase it or something where you have a tenant they're not paying and you need to work with them, typically that will allow them to kind of see, all right, I think it's best for me to take that money and move on and try to work with this guy because you're trying to work with them. You're not coming in guns blazing,
Right.
just trying to kick them out first. You want to work with these folks. And
Yes.
typically by the time your attorney has to get involved, you should have at least made the effort to communicate with
Right.
them directly. Again, like I said, they're human beings.
Yes.
Folks just want to have the best life they can. And so if you kind of approach them with that mindset, I think you'll be more open-minded to hearing them out. And when you do that, they'll hear you out simultaneously. But it can be tough. I mean, not everybody, when emotions get involved, sometimes people get unreasonable. And
Yes.
I've seen some crazy things, and I've dealt with some tough situations. But in the end, it definitely, you want to make sure you just do things right. And this is why it is good to consult with an attorney, even if you don't have them take that first step for you.
Nice. Well,
Yep.
we approaching the final 2 minutes of this program. And, well, it's only you who can give the last word. So what would be your word to those who are looking to invest now?
Yes.
Just state what you think they should and shouldn't do
Yes.
and take it all away.
All right. So what I'll say, guys, thank you for tuning in today, first and foremost. For anyone out there thinking about investing in real estate, I think understand that we are entering into the winter market. And the benefit of that is that typically people who are trying to sell in the winter are very motivated. Otherwise, they look to wait until the spring market. And so from that perspective, don't be bashful making offers that you feel may be lower than what the seller wants. Base it on what you're looking to do and what you're looking to achieve. The worst thing that can happen is that they say no. And so that's really my tip. In the winter, you really do have an opportunity to get properties for a lot less than you typically could. So don't be afraid. Go out there, be encouraged, and I hope you found this information helpful. And as always, stay tuned for more.
Okay. Well, on that note, I want to say thank you, Robert Nichols, again for joining in on Living in the 21st Century. And
Thank
this
you for
is
having me.
Boston Trust Realty Group. And to all those who are at home and watching, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Aral.
The right to play on any playing field, you have earned it. The right to hold a job, you have earned it. The right to study in any school, you have earned it. The days of separation and segregation are over.